tomorrow, December 2nd, will be the 28th anniversary of my father's death. So on December 2nd, 1983, my father is Wadey E. Suttle Sr. He was 66 years old, he was a World War II veteran, and he was found comatose in a cell at the Chattanooga City Jail. He was transported to Erlanger Hospital where he was pronounced dead on December 6, 1983. Now he was arrested after someone at the Trailways bus station on 5th Street called police to say that he was asleep in his car. That's really a charge of a suspicious person. That's the second time he'd been arrested for being a suspicious person. And you know, back in the 70s, a lot of black folk were arrested on that charge if they were walking around in a different neighborhood. But this was 1983, and I thought we had come a long way from that time, but that's actually what the charges were. Later on, when he was arrested, and his arrest record is on that wall back there so people can see it. There was no narcotics, no weapon, no drinks. He was arrested because he was at a meter in his car, and he never should have been arrested. Because he said, you know, I'm an American citizen, I have a right to sleep where I want to, as long as he was paying for that meter. He should not have been arrested. But he was arrested, and within 7 days after he was arrested, he was dead. Now, Isaac Cooper was the brother of the former Chief of Police here, Freeman Cooper. He was the arresting officer. Now, he had a line on his arrest record that said my father was laying on the pavement in front of the Trailways bus station, and the arrest record clearly shows what happened. You know, you can't have it both ways. So he told my dad to move on. My dad was in his car, like I said, and he objected. And because he objected to that kind of treatment, he was a veteran. You know, he paid his dues. He was hit in the mouth and transported to Erlanger Hospital. And he was transported to Erlanger Hospital because the jail personnel had a policy of not allowing anybody who was bleeding to come into that jail before, you know, they wanted to stop the bleeding. They didn't want to have to clean it up. So it was November 25th, 1983. As again, this was the first time he was taken to Erlanger Hospital. He refused treatment for a lacerated lip. And the charge was disorderly conduct. Like I said, he had no alcohol, no narcotics, and he was not drunk, but he was painted as being a drunkard. So the character assassination that goes on, that was in place. And there's a lot of people who believe that, and they still believe that, but you know, there's nothing I can do about what somebody believes. He called me on November 28th to come down to the jail and get him out. But when I got down there, he refused to be bailed out. I think he wanted my brother to come back the next day and go with him to the FBI because he had been in jail more than 48 hours. And matter of fact, he had been before the judge and told the judge that the police had been beating him up down there. And because the arresting officer was not in jail, he was sent back down to the jail. He was before the judge on November 26th, I think. But my mother had just recently moved to Somerville, Georgia, so my brother went to Somerville the next day to pick her up, to bring her back to the jail. When mother got to the jail, it was my mother, my sister, and my brother. They all went to see Judge John Taylor, who was the city court judge at that time. Told him about my dad's post-traumatic stress disorder from the war, and she asked Judge Taylor if he would release my dad in her custody so she could get him some help. But the judge said that you know, he refused. He threw my sister in a holding cell and told my brother my mother to get your family out of my courtroom before I throw you all in jail. And that was on November 29th. Mother tried to get some help, and she had retained an attorney, Martin Bean. He was going to charge her $700 to pay him, and she needed time to get that money up. That's what happens when you're a poor person in the city and being taken advantage of by the judicial system here. On December 1st, both the Chattanooga Times and the News Free Press reported that the Chattanooga City Jail might have to be evacuated because raw sewage was backing up in the jail. The city commissioners had decided to talk about it, before making a decision, and that nothing would be done before 30 days was up. Because this was raw sewage in that jail, inmates, including my father, was, and my father, and I want this made clear, he was a pretrial detainee. He never had a trial. Never, after the first time, went before a judge. They were being moved from one cell to another. During this process, witnesses have sworn that my father asked for a bath and a shave. Melvin Carson came into the cell with delousing chemicals to spray my father, and Dad was not told what these chemicals were for, was going to be used for, and he became frightened. And a fight ensued. Melvin Carson hit him on the leg with the can, and Dad, as I said, became frightened. First backed up in a corner on the top bunk, and that fight broke out. Dad was beaten and kicked by Melvin Carson. That's a statement back there, you can see that. And then Mike Williams came in the cell and he hit Dad with a slapstick. Now he says he had a blackjack in his back pocket. And I don't know if he's trying to say slapstick and blackjack are the same thing, but they're not. He hit Dad with a slapstick, and my dad went unconscious. And then they hog-tied him and dragged him 60 feet down a concrete hallway and threw him in the isolation tank, which they call a drunk tank. All he wanted was a bath and a shave, and according to the witness statement. And one witness said that Dad thought that they were going to mace him. And so they pulled him from the top bunk to the floor, and then they hog-tied him, like I said, and dragged him down the 6 feet concrete hallway. Melvin Carson talked about kicking him in the butt a few times. Mike Williams admitted hitting him with a slapstick, and then, like I said, they dragged him out of the isolation cell, back down 6 feet down the hallway, down a couple of steps, and threw him in a patrol car, taken him to the hospital. Like I said, this was December 1st, and it was this hospital visit was a second visit in 7 days. At the hospital, they gave him Visceral. He refused to talk. And they gave him, they called the jail, and they gave him Visceral. Now, Visceral is a sedative. And it's used for giving people, treating people for allergic reactions to some kinds of substances. And it's used for treating anxiety. It's also used for, as I said, a sedative before surgery.